Hello everyone and welcome to the Pixel Tavern. This video will be a little different from my usual content as it's not about any specific video game, but a video game event instead. In September 2024, I visited Edinburgh in Scotland and got to attend the Game On event, hosted in the National Museum of Scotland and created by the company Barbican. It's an event that has been to multiple museums and cities across the world to showcase video game history in the best possible format, interactively. So, here's my thoughts on the Game On event at the National Museum of Scotland 2024. There doesn't seem to be too much documented history on the event, but based on the details I can find online, it started back in 2002 and was set up by Patrick Moran and Luke Camp as a showcase of video game history from 1962 to the present day. The event consists of dozens upon dozens of games, consoles and computers from all generations and companies, most of which you can play and learn about, including some rare oddities that you may not even know of. All the footage you are seeing throughout this video is what I was able to film on my phone while I was there, so the picture quality is not going to be the best, but it should give you an idea of what to expect. Anyway, let's jump into how the event is presented. As you can see from the footage, every console, computer, arcade machine, artwork or merchandise is lovingly displayed. This is clearly set up by a team of talented individuals who really want to showcase their love of gaming and its history. Every system has plenty of space around it to make sure each area doesn't get overcrowded. There's no dangling wires, damaged displays, or broken lighting. Everything is professionally displayed. It also has a great retro aesthetic with lots of variation in its colours and overall decoration around the event. I'd say this is the best displayed video game museum I've been to, including the Sheffield National Video Game Museum, which I visited a couple of years ago. Which was by no means badly presented, but I feel the Game On event, especially considering it's only a temporary fixture at the museum, is particularly impressive. The overall floor space is great as well, allowing you to easily maneuver around the event without bumping into others or any of the displays. Everything is just nicely laid out and spacious. Next up is the history. Throughout the expedition and underneath every console and display are little information placards that give you details of the system above it or the merchandise it's showing. At this event in particular was an impressive display of Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead merchandise and concept art. Since this is in Edinburgh, the home of Rockstar, they provided some good rarities for visitors to check out, and they had their own area dedicated to the developer. Elsewhere was information on early innovators in video games, and some very early devices such as Nintendo's pre-video game creation, the Love Tester, were on display. Sadly, these are all a little too old and rare to try out, but it was good to see them so well displayed. Beyond those placards are some very impressive history showcases, with some rare and very old arcade machines, including the very first one. It contains computer space, the very first commercially available video game, and it was created by Nolan Bushnell in 1971. You can also check out a very old PDP-1 computer, which is about the size of two fridges next to each other, and it was displaying a game that predates even computer space, known as Space War. As you can probably guess, the machines weren't actually running, which if you know how much knowledge and people it takes to even turn these machines on, you would understand why. So as you might expect then, you cannot play either machine, and frankly they are probably just replicas. But if they were real, then they are preserved beautifully, and although you can't play them, you can play pretty much all the other old arcade machines, with Pong, Space Invaders, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong and more, all available to play. Then of course is the main attraction, all the computers and games consoles, and this is an impressive collection. Pretty much any console or handheld you can think of is here, and in most cases, playable. The only thing I can think of that might have been missing is the Xbox Series X, which to be fair I may have just not spotted. But I'm pretty sure I saw every other console I've heard of, and some I've never heard of as well. Some of the handhelds are sadly not available to be played, but they are all displayed clearly with information on each one. The consoles physically are all very well kept and running on what I think is the best displays for them, with the pre-HD games being displayed on CRTs, and more modern games on not the top end of TVs, but ones that are more than acceptable to display them. Any games with a heavy focus on music also come with headphones, such as Rez, Guitar Hero, Parappa the Rapper, and more. Multiplayer games also had great setups, with a large screen for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with a full 8 controllers, and even a Halo LAN play setup. I didn't get a chance to play it, but I think it was running Halo 3. The selection of consoles, games and rare oddities available was very impressive. Just a few highlights from me were the Nedgecon driving controller from Namco for the PS1, a basic looking controller, but its unique hook is that you twist the controller itself to steer. It was very bizarre but really fun to try out. Games-wise, I played Rez for the first time and thought it was amazing, definitely something I'll be picking up soon, and weirdly, they had a Super Nintendo setup with the first SNES game I ever owned, the original Jurassic Park game. A very random choice to display, but it gave me a nice shot of nostalgia. I also tried out Dragon's Lair for the first time. It is as brutally hard as I've been led to believe, but it's also really fun, and it's essentially the precursor to quick-time event games like Heavy Rain. Beyond that, I was also happy to see the Xbox Adaptive Controller fully set up and playable. It's a really interesting controller for disabled players. With so much customizability, it can work for a huge range of disabilities. It was also just fun to try out myself. Having these large panels for buttons gives the games you're playing a completely different feel. There was hundreds of other games across dozens of different systems, ranging from Pong up to something as new as Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. It also has a good ratio of indies to big publisher games. The overall event focuses more on games from the 80s up until 2010, with less focus on anything from the last decade or so. There is one more highlight I want to mention, but I want to end on a high note. So first I'm going to go over the few negatives I had for the event. A minor one first, there was an impressive looking gift shop outside the event, but it closed the same time as my time slot ended. I understand it was the last time slot for the day, but it's still weird to not stay open for an extra 10 minutes for anyone at the event to check out the store. Another issue I had was that some of the consoles and PCs had crashed, but in the 2 hours I was there were never fixed or reset. There was also a couple of systems where the controllers weren't working, and were never swapped out or even had a sign up to say that they were out of order. I know it would be difficult to keep an eye on all of these systems, I think there is well over 100 here, but considering some were directly in the line of sight of some of the staff, it did feel that there was just a lack of care for anything that wasn't working. There was also a general lack of representation of video game characters. There was a large section around Rockstar and there was also a VR and music section, but there was very little on iconic characters. Mario, Sonic, Lara Croft, Master Chief, Crash, Link, Kirby, there was basically no displays or history on any of them. This is something the Sheffield National Video Game Museum definitely did better. In fact, there wasn't really many games of these characters in general. However, I personally didn't mind this as I have played them all anyway. But overall, that's really all the issues I had, and these are all minor nitpicks that don't affect the experience much at all. It is a really impressive showcase of video games, and by far the best I've been to in the UK. However, I did say I wanted to end this on a positive, and well, here it is. I cannot believe they had a fully working Virtual Boy, and a playable one at that. The Sheffield National Video Game Museum did have one, but only for display purposes, whereas here I was able to play Mario Tennis for as long as the 3D would allow me. I have always wanted to play one of these, and I thought I never would due to not only their rarity, but that they are also coming up to 30 years old now, so even the ones that are out there are unlikely to work correctly. But no, here it was, fully working and in good condition too. The 3D is actually pretty good, almost on par with the Nintendo 3DS. It also has the sort of advantage of it being like a VR headset, so your eyes are locked to one screen only. The red lines do cause as many problems as you've probably heard though. This isn't something I imagine you could play for more than a few minutes at a time, but I imagine if I saw this in the 90s, I would have lost my mind even more than I did seeing it now. One thing people never seem to mention on the Virtual Boy is the controller, and despite its unconventional setup of having 2 D-pads, surprisingly, I found it not only comfortable, but I found it nice to use as well. There are 2 buttons on the back that sit perfectly where your fingers rest, and the overall shape of the handles fit nicely in the hands. Honestly, it's a weirdly good controller to use, and had this been on a more conventional and ultimately successful system, I think it would be more highly regarded today. But alas, the system was the biggest flop in Nintendo's history, so it's not something enough people have even tried to say whether or not it's good. And well, that's pretty much everything I have to say on the Game On event. It's on in Edinburgh's National Museum of Scotland until November 3rd, 2024, and tickets are around £12 each. There's also a special nighttime event on November 1st, which will have some of the developers of the games showcased coming in to discuss their work. I will leave a link to the site for tickets in the description below. The event does move around the world every so often as well, so hopefully it will come to a city near you in the near future. Otherwise though, thank you very much for watching. My name's Phil and I'm the creator of the Pixel Tavern. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the channel and click the like button for more videos soon. I enjoyed this event a lot and wanted to share my thoughts on it. I hope I can cover more events or museums like this in the future and create more content like this, hopefully on more Game On events as it moves around the world. If you want to see more of my videos, there are more on screen now, but otherwise, until the next video everyone, thank you very much for watching.